Hello, how's it going, folks? It's me again, your boy Tabo, and today we're gonna do another Three.js tutorial. So today's plan is to do this. So I've shown you before, so we're gonna set up this ability to highlight the selected object. So basically it highlights the object that I'm hovering over, and if I press click, then it stays highlighted like that. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's what we're going to be creating. So I'm going to go to, I've got a basic scene here set up. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to go to the documentation. Okay, so here I'll just type in raycaster. Okay, so there we go. So this is basically how you set up a raycaster. Okay, and if you look at the constructor, then it takes 4 arguments, which is the origin, direction, near and far. Well, as it states here, near just determines, okay, from how, if an object is beyond the set near value, then from then on it will not be able to pick up. So the ray will not interact with it. Same with far, you're setting up the cutoff point that from a certain distance, the ray will not reach that distance anymore. So any object that is beyond that, then it will not be interacted with. So what we're going to do just to see how this works, I'm just going to borrow some of this code here. So I'll take a piece of that. I'm just going to add it to our basic scene here. And then I'm going to take this bit inside of here, my own render function. Okay, I don't need 2 of these. And then I'm going to take that as well. Okay, so I'm going to open up my console. So let's see what's happening here. Okay, as you can see, the color has changed. But okay, when I hover over it, it is not doing anything. Oh, my bad. What I can do here is say make it set the color to any random color every time I hover over it. Okay, so let's see what that does. The reason why it goes off crazy like that is because when the window opens, pointer is in the middle. So the whole time then before I refresh, then it just keeps on changing the color randomly. But now you see it only does that when the mouse cursor is over the object. Okay, so this shows that this is working. So now we're just going to use this setup, and this is how we're going to create our highlight selected object effect. So now that we have an idea of how a raycaster works, so let's now move on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take code from the previous lesson and then use that and add all these other parts that we're going to be using. So okay, so this is the scene that we're going to be working with. Yeah, and this, let me just, because this over here is not say request animation frame render. I'm just doing this so that every time I do this, then I don't have to keep refreshing all the time, because before it was not really working properly. Every time I had to refresh for it to basically run this again. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna import these two, the outline pass and the FX AA shader. So these I'm gonna be using for our setup. Okay, so now we're gonna create 2 variables, a mouse and a raycaster. Okay, so this is a 3.vector2 and a 3.raycaster. Okay, over here I'm going to create a function called mouse move. Then inside I'm going to just run the prevent default. And so what we need to do is normalize our mouse position. Okay, so what that means is that we need our screen to run from -1 to 1. So 0 will be the midpoint. And in order for us to set this up, we need to use this setup over here. Okay, so this is the setup that we're going to use. We're going to make mouse.x equal to event.clientx divided by the Windows inner width we'll times that by 2 minus 1. And then for mouse.y, we're going to do something similar, but only just make this entire value negative and then times it by 2 plus 1. Instead of -1 here, we use +1. And so that's how you normalize the screen size. And so another variable we're going to create is selected objects, which is going to be an array. We're going to create another function called intersection. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this because I already have that set up. I'm going to create a variable called intersected. Okay, so inside I'm going to use the set from camera method for the raycaster. So I'll be using the mouse and the camera. Okay, so the mouse, basically the values of the X and Y are this over here that we were setting up. Okay, so I will use that. Okay, so now we're going to create the variable called intersect, and intersect is going to carry the value of an array, which will be returned by this over here. And that array is going to be containing a list of the objects that have intersected with the array, or that have been intersected by the array. And so in here we check to see if intersect is bigger than 0. So then we're going to check if intersected is not equal to this object over here, because as you see, intersected is undefined at the moment. So every time we run this function, it's going to give intersected the value of the first object. So it will always hold the value of the object that has been intersected. So this is just checking to see that this is not already the case. So if it's not the case and the intersected object is of type mesh, then it will continue and then assign it the value. If not, then it does not need to assign it a value because it is already that value. And what we also need to create is this over here, which is add selected object. So I will create that and explain what that does. Okay, so what this function does, it just clears this list over here. So it will check to see if this has been populated. If yes, then before it will assign it, because we're always going to be using the index 0, okay, of selected objects. So that's why it needs to clear it first before it puts in another object. So that's another intersected object. So that's basically what that does. So once that is done, then we're going to use add selected object, and then we'll add intersected. So it will put it at the top of the list. It will be the only object in there. And then afterwards, then we'll say outline.selected object equals to selected object. Okay, just in case you're wondering what outline is, we're still going to set up the shaders. So that's what that will be. Okay, so now let's create our shaders so that we can get this thing going. Okay, so over here, this is the setup we're going to be using. If you remember, we're going to create a composer, which is the effect composer. It takes the render and then the render pass, which takes the scene and camera. So I'm just going to add the render pass already to our composer. And then this is the outline shader. So the outline shader, yes, that is this one over here. Okay, so it's that and that. That is this one over here. So in order to set that up, first we need to pass it these values, and then we can set the thickness and the strength, and then we can also set the color of the outline. If you want it to be red, then we can just make it red over here, and that's what it will be. And then after we're done, because we always pass the render pass first, so whatever we pass in afterwards, then that's what it will be. And then we're going to need a texture for this. So we're going to say texture loader equals to three.textureloader. I'm assuming that you have the Three.js master folder. Okay, so if you want this pattern, you can find it in this URL over here. Okay, so you get your try pattern, and that try pattern is what's actually being used to create the outline, to draw the outline. So that's how that works. And then next we're going to create then our FXA shader. We'll pass it these values over here. Okay, and basically that'll be it. So now it makes sense what that outline is, because the outline is coming from that over there. Okay, so this is us just assigning the selected objects this effect. And one other thing that we're going to do when we resize our window, we also want to do this as well. Inside of this function over here, we're gonna do this. So this basically will reset so that the drawing of the outline will be accurate. And this is something that we're gonna need to do also for our composer. Okay, so now that that part is done, instead of using the renderer, we're gonna use our composer. You can just comment that out. Okay, before we run our code, let's just make sure that we've got everything. You need to have your Three.js, you need to have your orbit controls, obj loader, that's for loading the logo. But that should be there if you're working from the previous code, which is in lesson 5. So we're gonna add that bit over here so that when we move, then it's gonna run our mouse move function. Then another thing that we need to do is to run our intersection function over here. So we're gonna call it over here. So whenever the mouse moves, then it's gonna call this function and it should behave as expected. Okay, I'm just gonna fix this over here. Okay, so now we're gonna run and see how everything works. I'm always nervous whenever I have to do this. Ah, there we go. Okay, so as you can see, the selected object is highlighted because we set the color to red. There we go. So our code works. It was a bit of a mission because, yes, today I had to do things in a rush, honestly, so I was a bit all over the place. But overall, it works. And if there's anything that I did not explain properly or did not do justice, please don't hesitate. Say it in the comments, and yeah, I will get back to you. So yeah, that works. We can change the color here. We can make it back to white. And we can also adjust the thickness if you want. Let's make it thicker and see. So yeah, you can do what you like, but overall, yes, that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed it and that, yeah, this was helpful and educational. So with all that said and done, love and peace. I'm out.